Your weather guy here, back with another video update. Just gonna keep this video pretty short, but wanted to show you guys something. So, seeing some really interesting things in the models heading into next week. So, I'm gonna talk about what the weather pattern currently, and then why the changes that these models are seeing could end up being very significant. Before we jump into it, please hit that subscribe button, help this channel to grow. Greatly appreciate that. So this is taking a look at the weather pattern that we saw over the weekends. You can see we had our storm system there over the central part of the United States, bringing that snowstorm, major snowstorm to parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma got in on the action there. So one thing you notice is that where the storm was, that's where you have your blues, right? That's your area of low pressure. And then just off to the east, you have that big ridge, right? Those brighter colors, those oranges and reds, that's a ridge of high pressure there. So the storm track that we've been seeing, if I put this in motion, you can see that low pressure kind of cut to the north and the east because it can't really push east because of that ridge of high pressure. And that's still the pattern. So now as we go into this week here, you can see it's more of the same. We have area of low pressure. We have a trough digging into the western part of the United States right there, you can see. And then we have that ridge off to the east. So again, that's going to force the storm track to the north and to the east. But one thing you're seeing is high pressure ridging starting to build to the north. Whenever you see that, the low pressure is going to want to start to cut underneath that rather than be driven north into that ridge there. And then we're seeing major changes as we go into next week. So this is now early next week. You see that ridging really building there in North Hudson Bay over to Greenland, Baffin Island. So that is a very strong negative North Atlantic oscillation. You'll hear that term tossed out a lot over the winter. It's a negative NAO, and if you're a snow lover on the East Coast, you don't have to tell you what that means. Most of the big snowstorms that you've seen have had a negative NAO. So that's a very significant development on the models. But something else really caught my eye. So I want you to pay attention to the West Coast. So where we've had this trough of low pressure situated, that is going to it looks like it's going to change. The models are showing ridging starting to build in the western part of North America. You can see that here now, right? Look at that. You see those lines are now pointed more towards the north. So that's now a ridge of high pressure as opposed to a trough of low pressure that we've seen. So that is going to divert the storm track further to the east. So very, very significant changes. Whenever you have, that's called a positive PNA. When you have the ridging on the western coast, that's a positive PNA. Whenever you have that kind of tag teaming or teaming up with a negative NAO, those are pretty important pieces to East Coast storms. And as we go into the colder months, East Coast snowstorms. That's what you want to see if you're a snow lover on the East Coast. You want to see that positive PNA, that ridge on the West Coast, and then the negative NAO there over Greenland, Baffin Islands, parts of northern Canada there. So that's what the models are now starting to suggest as we go to the later part of next week. So would not be surprised if we see a significant storm threat start to pop up here in a couple days. Not predicting a storm in a couple days, but wouldn't be surprised to see the models perhaps start to latch on to the idea of some type of significant storm as we go into later next week or maybe the following week, which is a busy travel week. So that remains to be seen. I want to see a little more consistency in the models before I actually go ahead and predict that. But this is one model, right? So this is the GEFS, the GFS ensembles. And as we go further out into Thanksgiving week, it starts to break down that ridge a little bit on the western part of the United States, but you still have that negative NAO. And anytime you have that negative NAO there, again, it's a pretty important ingredient for snowstorms. So you still have that main ingredient, and it doesn't take much of a ridge to pop on the West Coast to produce a storm on the eastern part of the United States. But nonetheless, it looks like that storm track is going to be shifting further to the east if these models are right. Now, I'll pop over to the Canadian ensembles here and back this up a little bit. For middle of next week, and same type of theme. Look at that deep trough, the eastern part of the United States. So not only does that increase the storm threat along the eastern coast or the eastern third of the United States, but also whenever you have this ridge in the western part of the country, it now allows the colder air to funnel into the United States. So this looks like we could be headed towards a major pattern change. At this point, I want to see a little more consistency in the models, but the European ensemble is also showing something similar. Actually pop over, I'll show you one last thing real quick. So this is showing run-to-run change with the European ensembles, and you see these bright colors here. So the European ensemble is also picking up on a potential major pattern change next week. Now, how long that pattern change lasts, again, remains to be seen. Want to see these models get consistent with showing this, and then we'll kind of go from there. So that's it for today. I just wanted to bring you that update here. This could be a major update, and then over the next couple of days, I'll have another update out, taking a look at how this pattern is evolving and what to expect as we enter into this possible new pattern. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.